And we are live. How's everyone doing? I've got with me JM Hassan. Unfortunately, we lost Daud. Welcome to the Solution Podcast, everyone. We're going to be talking about the great replacement theory, true or false. Okay, and I've got Jean-Michel with me and Hassan. We've already got two of you guys watching. Everyone, how's everyone doing? Hassan, Jean-Michel, how's everyone doing? Hello,
Yeah,
guys,
yeah, I'm
guys,
doing
can you
okay. I'm doing fine. I'm doing
hear
good. I'm doing good. Doing well.
me? That's what I'm talking about. Hassan, what's going on, bro? You all right?
Same old. How are you? How's everyone?
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, bro. I can't complain. I can't complain. Um, Life is good at the moment, but you know, can't complain, guys. But we got to be talking about the great replacement for him. Before we even start, there's something I would like to read out um, about who the guy that came up with this replacement theory, the great replacement theory. So I think it's important to kind of have a quick read about who this guy is, kind of introduce him to the public for those that don't know who this person actually is. So just bear with me for a moment, guys. I'm just going to share this. This is just your Wikipedia information. So, okay, great replacement. Okay, so I'm just going to read this out before we start talking, guys. So, the great replacement, all right, also known as replacement theory or great replacement theory, is a white nationalist far right conspiracy theory espoused by French author Renaud Camus. I hope I'm saying his name correctly. The original theory states that with the complicity of or cooperation of replacists elites, the ethnic French and white European populations at large are being demographically and culturally replaced by non-white people, especially from Muslim majority countries, through mass immigration, demographic growth, and a drop in the birth rate of white Europeans. Since then, similar claims have been advanced in other national contexts, notably in the United States. Mainstream scholars have dismissed these claims of a conspiracy of replacist elites as rooted in a misunderstanding of demographic statistics and premised upon an unscientific racist worldview. According to the Encyclopedia Britannica, the Great Replacement Theory has been widely ridiculed for its blatant absurdity. Now, Renault comes just a little just something extra about who this guy actually is. All right, Renaud Camus, born John, John Michel, John Renaud Gabriel Camus on 10th of August 1946, is a French novelist, conspiracy theorist, and white nationalist writer. He is the inventor of the Great Replacement Theory, as we said, a far-right conspiracy theorist that claims that global elite is colluding against the white population of Europe to replace them with non-European peoples. Now, hold on a second. What I found out about this guy, Camus Great Replacement Theory has been translated on far right websites and adopted by far right groups to reinforce the white genocide conspiracy theory. Camus has repeatedly condemned and publicly disavowed violent acts which have been perpetrated by far right terrorists stemming from his theories. But apparently, this guy is also, this is the part, yeah, he's a socialist and LGBTQ advocate, and he's also homosexual. John Reynolds Gabriel Camus, we've already covered that, was born on the 10th of August 1946 in Chamalières, Auvergne, a rural town in central France. Raised in a bourgeois family, he is the son of Leon Camus, an entrepreneur, and Catherine Gaudier, a lawyer. His parents removed him from their will after he revealed his homosexuality at 21. Then a socialist who participated in pro-LGBT marches during the May 1968 events in Paris. And apparently, two of his books have been used by the LGBT to advance LGBT causes. Apparently, this is what I know from the guy. So, this is just a quick introduction about what this guy is all about, who this Reynolds Camus is that came up with this replacement theory. Guys, thoughts on the replacement theory and Reynolds Camus?
Which time do you want to go? For me to go.
Yeah, you go, bro, you go.
Okay, so I think one thing that it's important to highlight is that One thing that's not being um, highlighted in those breakdowns of the replacement theory, and this author, this French homosexual scholar, is that the root his the belief in it comes from an older document, which I think we've spoke about here, the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion, which many believe to be a fraudulent manuscript written by world Jewry as a blueprint to undermine all the white Western countries and to weaken them so that they can have global dominance and control. So this is where this comes from, this idea that it's the Jews that are behind this effort to flood European nations with brown Muslims and other non-white people. That this is what they have somehow engineered. I'm not exactly sure how this has happened, but they believe that this is something that the Jews have engineered, simply for the purposes of destabilizing Europe, weakening Europe, which would then somehow um, give them world domination. So I think it's important that we establish the real root of this belief, which is what people would highlight as, I guess, would be known as anti-Semitism. If you believe, that that's what anti-Semitism is, you would this would come under that definition. So I'm just giving a bit of context onto the whole
So,
theory.
so you're basically saying that the it all comes from this idea that you mentioned the elders of Zion in the book. So it's all coming from somehow the Jewish people, even though they they've been a minority, even though they've had no significant power since they were completely dismantled and dispersed by the Romans. Um, I think in 70 AD. So you're saying that ever since then, somehow these Jewish people managed to, I don't know, control these Western societies, these empires, these countries, and they are the ones responsible for for now trying to destroy the white identity. uh, I mean, I really don't get it. I don't understand how they can come up with that theory.
I mean, no, the why, to be honest. Obviously, these are people that also believe that the world is currently run by Jews. You know that the what they look at the fact that they are very powerful Jewish dynasties like the Rockefeller, Rothschilds, etc., who have a lot of influence in banking, I guess, in business, and who have a lot of influence in Hollywood and etc. They see that as proof that the world is kind of under some kind of Jewish leadership. That they're the real power behind the strings. They control the money, the financial system, and they control the entertainment um, system, the media. So I guess those two aspects of control translate to these people as world domination or a quest for world domination.
So let me get this right. So we can't look in history and see any real wars that the Jews have won. We can't see any country that, I mean, apart from the Israel state in 1948, we can't see any. You know, we don't see an Israel state taking over different countries, engaging into wars. We don't see any real Israel army, and somehow they've managed to control kings, queens, governments, and sorry, European kings and queens and governments, and so on and so forth throughout history. Is this what I'm supposed to believe?
So they would argue, their counter to that would be, it's not about a physical power, that they have so much financial clout that they're able to basically fund both sides of wars. They profit from war because they fund both sides. That's what they. So it's more of a behind the scenes puppeteer kind of situation that they believe exists. These people that believe this conspiracy theory, they would say this is more of a puppeteer type of situation where you have the evil Illuminati type of characters who are funding both sides of the war and subverting humankind and bringing out, putting debauchery into. And it's about, they would go further and say that, these Jews are trying to destabilize Christianity because, by the way, these are not my views. I'm just giving you because I've read on this extensively on this topic. They reckon it started with them killing Jesus, and they've always had some type of issue with Christians and Christian nations and undermining Christians, because essentially there's some type of devil worshipping cult, and this is what they believe, and there's many. I mean, a lot of these people we see that pushing these types of. If you notice recently in Twitter, you notice there's a lot of recently, especially particularly after the attack, the October 7th attack, and what's happened over there. There's been a lot of these kind of theories that suddenly come forward. All the major, right wing, a lot of the major right wing commentators, or very far right wing, are all pushing this anti-Semitism. I'm talking about Nick Fuentes, the Andrew Tates, the Tim Pools,
The Sneakos.
Well, I don't put him on that level. Sorry, I won't put him there. Yeah, go ahead.
Just want to give a shout out to Nazir9. He says, hello, everyone. Hello to you, Nazir. Hope you're doing well, bro. Still waiting for when you're going to join in, bro. Still waiting for that day. Hassan is back. Just let's get Hassan's views on it. But me personally, bro, the reason why I don't subscribe is because logically it just doesn't make sense to say that they'll fund in both sides. First of all, you have to be able to get to that level of being able to even fund both sides. And second of all, I mean, we've had examples. I mean, you can look at Gaddafi, for example, when he tried to, I think, how does the story go? He was trying to have created the Nari or something, or currency that will basically put the West out of business. And of course, the American war machine went up there and sorted that out. I just don't see how having that ability to do that can somehow destabilize or so put them in a position where they control entire governments and so on and so forth. I would love to see some evidence to substantiate that for me to believe in it. But let's get Hassan's views on this one. Hassan, go ahead, bro.
So yeah, pretty much agree with a lot of JM's perspective on this. The only thing I'd add is it's a bit like the trans community. The trans community represents a fraction of a fraction in terms of population, maybe 0.01%, but they're very, very well represented amongst in media, very well represented across all spectrums of society, even though they represent an extremely small minority. And I think this is the same case with those who subscribe to these theories. It's a very small group of people who believe these theories, who've committed themselves to these ideas, but they're amplified. And from what I can tell, it goes back to a lot of Russian funding. The Russian propaganda machine has been known to fund people like Tim Pool, people like a few mainstream people in the media who have these ideas and perpetuate these ideas, especially the far right political groups, because, as you can imagine, a divided and confused society that's going to war against itself is very easy to take advantage of. So it's in Russia's interest to fund these fringe ideas, like white replacement and such, even to the point where they get certain well-known politicians on the payroll, to the millions, tens of millions in some cases. So I trace this minority belief back to Russian funding. That's why I've got the Russian flag and the Russian funding on my thing.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. My personal view on this is that I don't subscribe. I don't see the evidence. When I look at history, I don't see that being the case at all. This is not how people gain power. You don't go from a completely dispersed nation, almost destroyed by the Romans, to gain so much, to gain power to the level of controlling governments. I just don't see that. What do you call it? I just don't see how that can happen. Things don't just happen. So logically, it doesn't make any sense to me. This idea that the Jews are controlling the entire thing, blah blah blah. I don't see how that follows. I would have to see a bit more evidence to show that that is the case. So you're telling me this
Well,
guy never had a country, never had an army, never had all of that, but somehow managed to grab hold of kings, queens, and grab hold of governments and all of that to and get them to do what they want them to do. It's to me, to me either what to me the most. If I was to look at it logically, what would have had to happen is the power for me to buy into that. The powers that be, or the the let's say the white nations, they would have had to. How do I say this? They would have had to somehow um, engage with them, form some kind of relationship with the Jews, and they would both have to be implicated in this. It would have to be a relationship, and a relationship that they would want to that they thought they would gain a lot from. So the Jews would have had to have something that these white nations would have felt, yes, we definitely want that, but not when it comes to finance. Especially when white nations had armies and these people were just basically being persecuted everywhere they went. I don't see that. I don't see that unless they were adopted by these white nations because they had something that they wanted from them, and eventually they formed a relationship or a bloodline or whatever. That's the only way I can see them having this
so
level of power.
I will say this, though, there are some things that we can't ignore. Factual stuff that people can research for themselves. There is such a thing as the Rothschild family is a real family. They started the modern day banking system. They're extremely powerful and have been extremely powerful and influential. Involved, and these are people that are part of our royal family and have been involved in very high positions within most European nations. You can't deny that. You can't deny the fact that if you was to go into most European countries and then find out who the richest people are in those said countries, there'll be a disproportionate level of Jewish people that would be listed in those high wealthy people. Now, does that mean that there's some type of conspiracy going on? Not necessarily. It just means that you have a group of people who have, over the years, become very successful. Um, they would and they have argued that because of the discrimination that they faced in Europe, and this is not they have faced discrimination in Europe. Obviously, we know that they were kind of pushed into certain trades. They were kind of pushed into being very self-reliant. So when you have a people that are constantly marginalized, I guess if you can argue, they are going to perhaps be more entrepreneurial, more kind of savvy with their money, etc. And potentially that could be the reason why they have kind of excelled when it comes to business. Another argument that many Jews would talk about is, yes, they are overrepresented in the entertainment industry, but again, they would argue that because in America particularly, because they face discrimination, and again they did face discrimination, that they were kind of again pushed into certain industries and entertainment and management of artists, etc., music, boxing, and these type of entertainment media. That these were the industries that they were pushed into because they were shut out of other industries, and this is why up to this day they may have a you know a presence, a high presence in these entertainment industries. So these are things that they would put forward as to why they do have statistically they're overrepresented in some of these fields.
You're on mute. You're on mute.
Yeah. Shouts to Dumpy Stegman. He says, thing is, the less white male American mentality there is, the more everyone else votes for Gibbs. Guys, remind me what Gibbs means. Import enough poor people from around the world, and socialism is an inevitability. Um, we're about to get into that, but I hear you guys. But for example, if what we're talking about is that the Jews done well for themselves. So Hassan, I know you're going to go look, just quickly respond
I'll come.
to
I'll come.
Jen.
I'll come to that.
If all we if we saying that all that happened is the Jews done well for themselves, I can agree with that. I can agree with that. If there is no conspiracy, then they just done well for themselves. So there is no conspiracy. But if we are we saying there's more to that, or are we saying um no, this just the Jews done well for themselves, considering because the persecution around the world is very well documented of the Jews. So if what we're saying is that these people just done well for themselves, then yeah, I can get into it. If we're saying that these people somehow managed to become so powerful that they can now influence governments and they have governments, on the under their fingertips. I can't buy into that unless these governments are complicit in it, unless these governments wanted something from them that they have. Maybe they have something that they thought was invaluable and they wanted to be a part of it. If that's the case, but I'm gonna need something a bit more logical than just people who have been persecuted all throughout history, somehow finding a way of controlling governments out of nowhere just because they're going to finance when we know that what really runs the world is the military, and the military can just come in and take everything that you have, whether you like it or not. So I'm gonna need something more. But what are we saying? Are we saying that is are we saying that's the case? Is that what happened? Or are we saying they just, Jews have done well for themselves?
So I
Hassan?
think to bring it back to the topic of the Great Replacement theory, I
Yeah,
think
because I wanted to
okay,
come back to
so
it. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I mean I think that okay, so why are okay before the Great Replacement theory was kind of a thing. My understanding as to why we have people from specific okay, it's important to look at what people are traveling to what countries and why. So okay, so we want to talk about Muslims traveling to Europe. Why is that the case? Okay, so we have to then look at history and look at what has happened in their homelands. What has happened over the last 100 years in their homelands? Have we not seen systematic with destruction and war in some of these lands perpetrated by the West? You look at the Gulf Wars, constant destabilization maneuvers led by the West in most of the Middle East and some of North Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa. These are places that have been blighted by European imperialism for decades. So my understanding before this became a thing for great replacement theory, my understanding was all you're getting is the people that are fleeing the same places that European imperialism has destroyed. If your homeland, if one side of the world has become fat and rich of the exploitation of the other side of the world, where would those people run to? Would they not? Does it not make sense to run to the part of the world that's become rich off the imperialism in your whole homeland? That just seems to make sense, and I don't think it's something that is specific to Muslims. I think anyone in that situation would flee into the place potentially where income has become, where a society has been developed based on the amount of revenue that has been pillaged from other places in the world, and the societies that flourish from it, comparable to other societies. Everybody wants a better life for themselves and their family. Everybody wants stability. Everybody wants a sense of peace. Would it not make sense to go into the parts of the earth where those things are much more likely to be, there than places that are not? I don't think this is down to any kind of theory, conspiracy theory created by Jews to destabilize Europe. This is what Malcolm X called the chicken coming home to roost. You want to go around imperialism and just, gazing in imperialism and destroying other people's homelands, then the same people are going to
Yeah.
Not sure what happened to JM. Should join us soon. Don't know what happened there. Just give it a second. It should come back in a minute. I want him to finish his thought before Hassan comes on. But shout outs to Dampier Stegman. Shout outs to Nazir 9. Guys, everyone's opinion is welcome in here. Um, so shout outs to all you guys. And I'm gonna put the link as well in the comment section. So if any one of you guys want to jump in and offer your opinion on this topic, you're more than welcome. I'm not sure what happened to Hassan. You want to give your thoughts while we wait, or you want to
Yeah.
wait?
I don't.
Shall we wait for? Shall we wait
Yeah.
for? Shall we wait
Yeah.
for?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because I've got a few things to say about what he said. I've got a few things to say about what he said
Oh, fair.
in regards to that. But I want to hear your thought. I want to hear you talk more, Hassan. I want to hear you engage more with this issue. I want to hear your opinion on this.
Uh, I don't have many opinions on it, to be honest.
Huh?
I don't have
So, so
much.
what? So what? So what do you think? What do you think is? What do you think is? You think
The great
it's
replacement theory.
no. So no. What? So what do you think? Do you think it's it's just the Jews done well for themselves, or do you think it's the other theory of you know, they somehow managed to through finance control governments and so on? What do you think? What do you think it is?
I don't know.
Or do you
That
think
I
there's
think
both?
I think that might be another topic, um, and I think that
Mm,
might be a theory that some have, which I won't comment on. But what I do think, as
okay.
far as the general topic is concerned, which is the great replacement theory, I think it's a, as I said with the trans community, it's a fringe of a fringe of a fringe community or opinion. It really doesn't hold them much. You can look at how they're eating each other alive now. With you have people like what's this, Nick Fuentes, um, and a lot of other far right wing commentators and content creators. They're all pretty much turning against each other because all it spews is hateful. All it is a hateful ideology that doesn't necessarily go far. Now, why is it become popular and a bit more mainstream to the point where I remember I was trying to share this link with you, but I didn't get a chance. Um,
Mm.
I'll,
Which link?
I'll put it on the screen now
Mm.
if you don't mind sharing it. Uh, trying to share my screen. Where is it?
Did you send it to me in private chat?
No, I'm going to share my screen for like 2 seconds. This is it. If you want to put it up on the main.
Yeah. Hold on a second. Let's have a look. Okay. What is this?
So his speeches have been translated by AI into English, and it's become quite popular on Twitter and obviously TikTok.
Okay.
Those have been your screen is frozen, I think. Oh yes, fine. So it's become quite popular and trending as of late. The this sort of movement, this sort of idealization, this sort of movement that how can I say seeks to change the world or Western society back to what it was back then in the 1920s and 1930s, where there's the ethnic minority is more of a minority, has less influence. That includes the Jewish community. That's become very popular online. And from what I can tell, these opinions, if you can play the link, I think the 1 second. I think if you can click on the link, the second link that I've sent in the group chat.
Second link. Yeah. Let me
Yeah,
have a look.
no, actually, it'd be like the last one. Last
The
link.
last one.
Yeah.
I'm thinking it's this one here.
Originally reported.
This is it.
Failed to give an exact amount received, but said the third loan could have
We
been
play
up
from
to
the beginning.
€1 million, according to Paris-based news agency
Fair
Mediapart.
use. Fair
The
use. Fair
86-year-old
use.
was previously.
It's only 40 seconds.
The honorary president of France's National Front, Jean-Marie Le Pen, has admitted to receiving more Russian funding for his far-right party than the millions of euros originally reported. Le Pen failed to give an exact amount received, but said the third loan could have been up to €20 million, according to Paris-based news agency Mediapart. The 86-year-old was previously reported to have obtained a €2 million loan from a holding company owned by a former KGB officer and another €9 million loan from the Moscow-based First Czech Russian bank. Party officials claim the money will be used to fund future local and presidential election campaign efforts.
Okay.
So yeah.
What are
So
you telling me on this one?
so you've got the far right political groups in Europe. You've got far right. You can get rid of that. I think you've got far right political groups in Europe. You've got far right media groups in the US. All of them can be traced, or a lot of them can be traced back to Russia, Russian funding.
So you think this is communism versus capitalism?
I don't think it's communism. I think it's just Russia having its trying to have influence in Europe and the US, because you have Tim Pool, Lauren Chan, David Rubin, and a few other successful podcasters, YouTubers, having them being paid to make pro-Russian videos. You have far-right political groups receiving funding for their campaigns by the Kremlin. So these ideas that ruined Europe in the 1940s, ultra-nationalist, racist in a sense, far-right, anti-Semitic opinions and beliefs, ruining Europe in the 1940s, obviously with World War II and what have you, causing so much destruction, now coming up again and being funded by Russia, or at least assisted by Russian money to make these fringe ideas more mainstream. Because what do you hope to gain from, we don't want diversity, we don't want a diverse labor force, a diverse whatever, right? And we want to get rid of it, and we want to get rid of it now. Well, you're ripping your own nation apart very quickly for the sake of nationalism and ethno-nationalism. You
But
might want that in the long term.
let's look at the reasons. Okay, I'm not sure what's happening with Jean-Michel, but he's got the link, he's got everything. When he sorted things out on his end, I'm sure he'll join us back in again. I tried to call him, no reply. So there must be something going wrong. He did say he was having technical issues. But look, look, listen. What are what reasons did he give for saying that for coming up with this great replacement theory? Okay, that's what we have to look at. All right, what are his reasons for saying there's a great for coming up with this great replacement theory? He mentioned what? He mentioned immigration. He mentioned birth rates. He mentioned um, and, and he basically said that the elites are complicit in this. This is the elites doing. So he doesn't blame immigrants. He doesn't blame any of that. He's saying that there is a group of elites in the West who are um, who basically have this agenda to replace the white population. Now, I don't believe that whatever they doing or the elites are doing is necessarily to do with race. I know he perceives it as race. He thinks it's to do with race, but it's not necessarily to do with race. I don't believe so. Oh, there's JM there. JM, everything all right?
Yeah, sorry guys, my phone's really been playing up recently. Just suddenly just turned off.
Yeah, I tried to call you, but I couldn't get through to you as well.
Suddenly just turned off. Just give me a second. I'll put my headphones back on. Just give me a second.
No worries, bro, no worries.
You were saying?
Yeah. So basically, what I was saying was, when it comes to what are the reasons that he gives, because everything is all over the place right now. Because Hassan there is some comments. I'm trying to remember what James' last comment was before we lost him. Let's see. What was James' last comment? James, what was your last comment? James, what was your last comment? Before you.
So my last comment, the point I was making is, before we had this whole idea of the great replacement theory, I think this is a deflection, basically. And it's no surprise that this is being put out by white nationalists and people that are, pro-Europe. Because the real reason why Muslims and other people are traveling to the Western world is because the West have destroyed their homelands. This is the point I'm making. Through imperialism and the destabilization of other nation states for their own profit. Look what they did in Iraq, Afghanistan, Iran. This whole quest for oil, and in Africa, some of the natural resources that they've pilfered. There's no surprise that these are the types of people from these parts of the world, specifically from these parts of the world, that seem to be the ones that are fleeing their homelands into the West, because one side of the world has enriched itself, and this is reflected in the societies that they build. The West is obviously, on the planet Earth, the West is the most highly advanced in terms of their structure, the wealth they've accumulated, which gives them a standard of living as high as other places in the world. This has been afforded to them because of all the imperialism and war and the robbing of other places throughout history. So it's no surprise that the people of these lands are going to go to the place where wealth is at, where there's a high standard of living. This is just human nature. There's no conspiracy behind this.
Hassan, do you subscribe to that?
Well, he's just pointing out recent history, really. Recent history being the destabilization of the Middle East and Africa and a variety of other developing nations who really ought to be ultra developed. But if it wasn't for the usurpation of Western society and Western imperialism, they are now some of the poorer nations dependent on the West through debt, through military protection and conquest and what have you. So the idea that those people have no other option but to be, in a sense, second-class citizens or in a lower position or refugees or whatever the case may be, in countries that have become wealthy through the extraction of labor and natural resources and a variety of other wealth aspects being transferred from their nations to the West. It's just recent history he's pointing out, and it's a matter of fact. So the point he's making, as I've understood it, is there shouldn't be a complaint by Western society that their nations are far more diverse. It's not by coincidence that a majority of countries in Africa speak English or French or Portuguese or English and variety, or Dutch, a variety of other European languages, because there were Europeans there and there were Europeans that had economic and military control over those nations. You have the rush for Africa, whatever it's called. You have the West carving up the Middle East. It's just the state of affairs post-colonialism, post-World War II, post the Cold War, I guess, as well, that the world is shifting far more inorganically than it should. People are moving from one continent, from one nation to the other, for drastic reasons at a expedited rate, right? So I have no problems with what you're saying. It's just a fact. Having said that, is there a reason for this theory? Is it valid? Is it just to say we're being replaced, because of birth rates and so on, whatever? It's a fringe belief. I just can't ignore the fact that a lot of these fringe beliefs are being propped up by countries that are former enemies of the West, Russia and China to a certain degree. So that's my perspective.
I would have to slightly disagree with both of you guys. I think I don't think the West became as powerful as it became. I don't think it was all due to war. Um, of course, slavery, for example, played a part in the West's development. War certainly did, but I mean, but when you talk about war, you have to talk about exactly individually what took place and what happened for these wars to start in the first place. And there's different reasons that goes into that. There's also the Industrial Revolution. There's always things of that nature. Um, the scientific revolution kind of took place in the West that led to the Industrial Revolution and so on. So I mean, there's other things that allowed for the West to become as developed as it became. Of course, war helps, not denying that. But the atomic bomb comes out of scientific development. So if you never develop scientifically, you wouldn't have come up with something like the atomic bomb. And of course, once you get the war, then yeah, you can exploit that country and so on and so forth. So what I'm basically saying, when it comes to, I I agree with the replacement theory, but not for the reasons that the far right agree with the replacement theory. Um, the reason why I say that is because it's not that they are trying to replace white people. I don't think the powers that be. The accusation is that the elites are somehow trying to replace white people, and they're trying to do this because they are importing people. They're doing this for immigration. They're doing this for, bu- bu- you know, birth rates and so on because immigrants have more children and the West does. I, I think I think the replacement theory is it's inevitable because of the ideologies that have come out of the West that the birth rate is a big reason, is one of the biggest reasons why this replacement theory even exists. Feminism fought for for the situation to become what it became. Um, it has to do with the ideologies that these elites implemented in the first place that has led to the birth rate becoming as low as it has become. I mean, it is okay to murder babies in this country, in the West, and all over the world, really now these days. But mostly in the West, it's mostly the West carrying out these evil practices. You know, it's okay. They've invented mechanisms and ways to for women to be promiscuous and not get pregnant. They've invented ways of killing a baby in the womb. They've invented for these things. They've promoted degeneracy that led to the destruction of the nuclear family. So it's not a surprise that the birth rate has become so low. I bet if the birth rate hadn't become so low, they wouldn't be as worried about immigration as they are now. When you've got a group of people immigrating to your country and they're having six babies, um, yeah, I mean, eventually, just you just got to do the math. Eventually, you're going you're going to disappear when you're only barely having one child. Eventually, it's going to happen. This is just math. This is just a fact. But I don't think that's to do with. They think it's because, oh, they're trying to replace the white people. I don't think that's what the elite is trying to do. The white people are looking at it as they're trying to replace race with another race, but the elites are looking at it differently, and they're looking at it in a much more sinister way. They don't look at race the way we look at race. Remember, they used race in order to divide and conquer. They're much more intelligent than most people understand. People are only looking at it at the basic level. So if we're going to just look at facts and statistics, has immigration increased in the West? Yes, it has increased, and it could also be for the reasons that Jean-Michel mentioned. Look at 9/11 and what 9/11 the consequences that 9/11 led to. It led to the invasion of all those Muslim Arabic countries. And yes, that would have increased immigration to the West. Absolutely, makes perfect sense. So yeah, but immigration has increased, and the birth rate has declined in the West. And I think these things are done by design. So I think the replacement theory makes sense, but it's not to target white people. I think it's beyond that. Yeah, I guess.
So just to clarify, when I don't believe it's war specifically that has enriched Europe. That's why I said I think it's imperialism. So when I'm talking about the act of um, infiltrating another person's another geographical area and extracting the wealth from that particular area and using it to enrich yourself. I think that has been much more that would be much more impactful in terms of enriching the West than actual wars because we've had two world wars and I don't think anyone actually were financially enriched from that. So I wouldn't say it's wars. Even the Gulf War, it can be argued that there was access to oil, which obviously would be seen as enriching oneself. So that's an example where potentially war, but I think it's much more to do with
Both.
economic imperialism, which I think is a good book. The Economic Kickman is a good book to read. It shows you in detail how the West has used, nefarious business practices, corruption, infiltrate, downright stealing of resources and foul business practices to enrich themselves while um, the places where they're doing it are falling into third world status. Um, but Nelson's also right in terms of scientific achievements but my argument would be that the scientific achievements that we see, including the Industrial Revolution, again, if you find that those are built from the initial pillaging. I think that um, they had a head start in terms of having that financial wealth to then invest into technology.
Mhm.
But going back to the replacement theory, so one thing that we haven't spoke about is yes, we've all acknowledged that we do have an influence of migrants coming into Europe. What's the reason for it? So we have one theory, that the Jews are behind it to somehow rid the Europe of white people. Guys, to me, it's much more simple business. It's multinational companies looking for cheap labor. As far as I can say, it's as simple as that. We've seen it in places like Germany. In Germany, Merkel wasn't a Jew that was trying to destroy the German white population. She understood that big business, needed migrant labor. You have to understand, big business lobby governments.
Mhm.
Without the money that big business has to lobby particular political parties, these political parties wouldn't exist. So these multinational countries are very powerful. If they say to a government, look, yeah, we'll support your nomination, but we need migrants over here to for us to be able to produce products at minimum out of cost. So that's what we're seeing. We're seeing industries who are using people who are okay with being paid a salary that the average European would not accept. These are facts. That's why they, at one point they even was. That's why we have zero contract hours. We have people working with no work, with no pay, no sick pay. Literally hardly any benefits whatsoever. Things that Europeans are not used to dealing with. The idea of most European people being told you can enter into a work contract where there's no such thing as holiday and sick pay is completely unheard of. That's only been introduced with the influx of migrant workers who, coming from impoverished backgrounds, obviously are going to be much more
So,
open.
so bro, but isn't there
Yeah,
minimum wage? But they still have to
they,
abide by the law,
not,
which we
not,
have a
not, not,
minimum
well,
wage in this country.
okay, but if you look at zero contract, the zero contract hours means you can have an employee that you only pay, and sometimes let's be honest, guys. Not everyone is getting minimum pay. There's ways around some of these how these organizations run their businesses, where I'm not even sure that every single person in this country is actually even getting a minimum wage. For example, you have delivery drivers who are being told your salary is based on the amount of packages you deliver. So there's no actually specific minimum wage there. It's literally based on how quickly they work. And these are the type of contracts that these companies are coming up with to minimize their profits, to maximize their profits. And I believe in order for them to implement these type of work conditions, you had to have accommodating workforce who would be okay with it. And these people that are coming from the developing worlds, where this type of working, these type of salaries and work conditions are things that they're okay accepting. And I think this is the real reason why you're seeing why we are seeing an influx of migrants. It's literally a cheap workforce. Sorry to say. I mean, this is no disrespect to the people, but let's be honest, guys. We could see now with our own eyes that the majority of very low paying work in this country at the moment is being done by people who are migrants. I mean, we can see this for our own eyes, and I think that's all done by design. And I don't think there's any conspiracy to it. I literally think it's these multinational companies who have realized that this is the workforce we could use to maximize our profits.
What do you reckon, Hassan?
I agree 100% that it's far more financially motivated. ideological or anything else. The multinational corporations are the same ones that tried to set up a coup, I think in the 1920s, because they didn't like some of the U.S. president's rules. It was, I think, it was General Electric, and I have to get the article for you, that tried to pay off and bribe certain generals to overthrow the U.S. government. That same general, I think his name is Smedley Butler. Smedley Butler. He's the one that used to. He said himself, "I invaded a variety of South American countries for private corporations, whether it be banking, fruit, um, um, I think oil and gas or whatever." The term banana republic comes from private business owners having, well, one particular private business owner, but private business owners having such wealth that they can dictate who is president and who's not president. Um, the term banana republic comes from one particular investor in started a banana company. I think in South America, I think in Cuba, or I'm not too sure. Having such influence on the economy of certain Caribbean or South American countries that whoever became president would have to gain his financing and his approval. You've got in the how can I say, the Brexit. Apparently, a lot of that was influenced by wealthy billionaires in the UK who didn't want the EU making them pay more taxes, so they funded ideas like Brexit. You have a lot of oil and gas interests that influence conflicts in the Middle East. So the Great Replacement is just an observation to a certain degree that your ethnic status isn't that valuable, that you will be replaced by somebody else who will suit our agenda and our line our pockets. So so that is how I think it all really. If you follow the money, you can see a clearer picture. As far as I can.
What you guys, let me understand what you guys are saying. So you're basically saying the reason why they doing all of this, the reason why the immigration has increased and all of that, it's all because of cheap labor. Um, so feminism incentives, feminism ideology, plays no part, has no. All of this is just to get cheap labor, basically. So all just comes down to cheap labor. That's it.
Well, yeah, I think that is what it is because, as I said, we could see with our own eyes that when you look at all the low-paying, menial type of work, service industry stuff, delivery, the kind of what we used to call manual, not even manual, but minimum type of wages types of working. They're all it's almost exclusively now being done by people who are recently arrivals in this country. That's why you have people delivering your food who could struggle to speak English. No disrespect to them, but this is the experience that we've all dealt with. People that we're engaging with who are working, who are clearly still struggling with the language, which highlights the fact that these are new arrivals to the country, or very recent arrivals to the country. This is happening all over Europe, not just in the UK.
The reason why I slightly disagree with that is, first of all, they're coming over to this country, and they don't stay working under, with low wages for the rest of their lives. They don't have this existence for the rest of their lives. That's not what tends to happen. What tends to happen is when they come in here, first of all, they have a better life than they have back in the country that they come from. They also have benefits in this country. A lot of them are living off of benefits. And in this country, let's say, if a woman is pregnant, blah blah blah, she's gonna enjoy certain rights that this country will be able to afford it, whereas another country will not be able to afford it. So the reason why I can't necessarily buy this idea that it's just a cheap labor is because if a person has immigrated to this country, and is living in this country, is staying in this country, and is allowed to stay in this country, they are going to basically enjoy some of the laws that enjoy the laws that are afforded to them. And I don't see anyone not taking advantage of those laws in order to, in order to join cheap labor. So and a lot of them go on to become, I don't know, well educated, so there's a chance there for them to even, become doctors, become whatever, depending on how driven this immigrant person is. So I don't necessarily believe it, because this country has so many laws that can afford you to move up in this country. I don't think the motivation for these immigrants coming in, or them allowing these immigrants coming in, it's just to do with cheap labor. Because if it's just to do with cheap labor, then get rid of all these other laws that you have. That free housing, this and that and that and that. I'm sorry, I don't see you guys arguing. It just don't make sense.
So what I'm going to say, we'll read a couple of things off to show that this idea that the immigrants are coming here and with the whole benefits, coming here for benefits, etc. For a start,
No,
most migrants in this
sorry,
country.
Jim. Sorry, Jim. It's not just to get benefits, to get money. For example, they get housing. So, for example, if someone goes to jail, right? When someone comes out of jail, they can get free housing as well. They can get free housing. They can get all of that type of stuff. They get benefits. I know a couple of people who are in those situations. So, for example, when an immigrant comes to this country, they have to house them. They have to put them somewhere. So benefits. It's not just money. It's also to do with healthcare. It's also to do with houses. They have to put them in a certain place. Of course, they are in a waiting list right now, and but eventually they're gonna have to give them some kind of housing. They're gonna have to
Right.
give them some kind of money to stay to survive.
And
Yeah, go
that
ahead,
that's
boss.
that's the
So,
that's
what?
sorry
Sorry,
sorry.
Hassan,
That
go ahead. Go
sounds
ahead,
like
Hassan.
cheap labor, bro.
Go
This
ahead,
this
Hassan.
is this. I was just gonna say like one sentence. This is when you look at the numbers, rather than making the assumption that uh, people, I guess immigrants is the word, is the best way to do it, because that's what the Great Replacement is about. When you don't look at the numbers, you come to an incorrect conclusion, which makes the term or the expression of Great Replacement valid, when it's not. The immigrant population props up the economy to a certain degree. Secondly, in the amount that they take away, well, okay, okay, let me ask you that. For example, what percentage of immigrants take up social housing? Your mic.
Sorry, bro. I haven't looked at the statistics.
So
Yeah,
I haven't looked
what
at
I
the
could,
statistics.
I've had a
Yeah,
look.
yeah.
So what I would say is that first of all, the kind of migrants you're describing, Nelson, are the, the tiniest and smallest percentage of migrants that come to this country. So you're kind of conflating economic migrants with legal immigrants and refugees. Those are the ones, that are more likely to get the free housing and the benefits that you're talking about. They make up a tiny percentage. There's almost like, but one thing I was reading here. There's a couple of things I'm going to read. There's a couple of points. So in terms of the ethnicity that claims the most benefits, obviously that's white people. This is what I'm reading. Universal credit statistics from the government. 77.5% of those claiming universal credit were from the white ethnic group. Another one, immigrants paid in 10% more in taxes than they receive in public services and benefits, compared to only 5% surplus for the UK born population. So actually, migrants actually put more into, statistically, actually pay more tax than the indigenous population. In terms of migrants to the UK that are asylum seekers, they account for 7%. 7% of all migrants who are asylum seekers. We're talking about a tiny population. So again, the majority of people that come here, migrants, number one, are not claiming benefits. Number two, are putting more into the economy in terms of taxes than the indigenous population. So they're working. So yeah, the majority of migrants that come to this country are working. And as I
But that wasn't
mentioned
my
before, they
argument, bro.
work.
Bro, that wasn't my argument. My argument wasn't that whether they pay more than the majority and so on and so forth. Um, that wasn't my argument. My argument was that, you know, the argument. Remember what you guys were saying. They're being allowed in. The reason why immigration has illegal immigration has increased and immigration in general has increased is because of apparently cheap labor, that these corporations want these guys for cheap labor. That's the reason why. I mean, that's basically what you guys are arguing. And I'm saying when you are whether you're an illegal immigrant, if you are somehow allowed to stay in this country has certain you
Privilege.
enjoy certain legal rights. You enjoy certain laws and so on. So it's not necessarily for cheap labor. You know, it's not.
But the majority of migrants,
Yeah.
Hold on a
not the
second, guys. Hold on a second. I've got rising knowledge here. It says, now what's this all about? What is the argument? The argument is we are talking about the great replacement theory. Welcome, bro. We are talking about the great replacement theory, true or false. So this is what we currently talk about. Also, listen, if you would like to join the conversation, there's a link there. Feel free, brother. Um, it's not about labor. It's a favor. Okay, okay. Yeah, go ahead, Jay. I'm sorry, bro. I interrupted you. Go ahead.
yeah. So it is about working. That's why most migrants come here. They are, and they're doing as I said, they're doing the more menial work. For example, so another more statistics here. So migrant men, this is I'm reading now. Migrant men were more likely to be employed than UK-born men. Okay, that's one thing. Um, Unemployed migrants were less likely to claim unemployment benefits than unemployed people born in the UK. Migrants are overrepresented in the hospitality sector, transport and storage, and information, communication, and IT.
Mhm.
So yeah, so they are mostly coming here to work. Um, Hardly any of them claim benefits statistically,
And they pay in more than they
and
take.
they're paying more. So from those statistics, it shows you that there definitely is a correlation between the migrants coming in and they're being utilized in the workforce and in the industries that are the lowest paid.
So Octavio, do you see how JM's argument, JM's statistics rebuke the argument that, well, they can't be free labor because they can come in and they're afforded all the privileges of any other citizen. JM statistics point out that even if they are, they pay more in than they take out. So whether it be free housing, whatever social benefits that they may be privileged to, doesn't matter because they're not taking away from the treasury. They're paying in more than they're taking out. So that argument of it can't be cheap labor because they come in and they have access to social services like every other citizen. Therefore, they must be a debt to the overall tax in terms of their contribution to the society. It's not true. They contribute more.
My argument was that it's not cheap. It's not because of cheap labor. That was
Yes.
my argument.
Yeah.
I need to look into the statistics and to see and look at statistics that JM is looking at
Yes.
for myself, and then I'll formulate my conclusions. But I don't think no one is coming to this country for cheap labor, given the rights that people in this country enjoy. I'm part of this country. I know this country well. I know the
If
rights
the
that
if
people
if the
enjoy.
st-
Hold on. I know the rights that people enjoy in this country, and I know
yeah.
how how you can be nothing and you can be great in this country in
Yeah.
a couple of years if you apply yourself. So this idea that this country, that people that come to this country are coming in because corporations are willing to use them. Maybe don't get me wrong. I'm not even denying that someone might get a job, a low pay for a couple of years until they, study and get themselves up there. But there are a lot of rights that you enjoy in this country that can get you up there. So
but
I don't
But
believe
we
it
got to
that's
look
can
at
that's
we got to look at
be
the main
used for
reason
cheap
what.
labor.
Yeah, we got to look at the main reason why. So majority of migrants are what's known as economic migrants. That means they literally are coming here for the purposes of employment. So this is a fact that so most migrants that come to this country are coming to work. And let's look at the work that they're doing statistically. I read where they're more likely to be working in the storage, hospitality, um, parts of industries. That's where they're more likely to be working in. So these are the lowest, most more than likely these are the lowest paid employment that we have in this country are within these industries. So this is why you can say that they are coming for most of them are coming to do what we quote unquote cheap labor. And it's just not when I use the word cheap labor, I'm not using it as a disparaging statement. I'm literally just saying that they are they are doing the jobs that are typically paid less compared to other types of employment. These are the industries that typically have the zero contract hours, the and minimum wage, and that's why most migrants are coming to this country to work in these industries because most of them
And
are
and I
economic.
compl-
Most of them are economic
and
migrants.
no, absolutely, and I completely agree with you. No, trust me, Jean-Michel, I completely agree with you. I know that for a fact. If you go to, uh, if you go to these type of jobs that Jay was talking about, you're gonna find loads of migrants there. You're gonna find loads of migrants there, working hard. You know what I mean? So you're gonna find loads of them. But what I'm saying is that first of all, this is not something that they are likely to stay on for many years. Why? Because of the rights that this country provides. So this is a temporary state. This is a temporary state that they are in, and eventually they go on to actually become um, more educated. They go on to become. They go to enjoy the rights that this country provides, and they actually make
What
something
do you
of them.
mean when you say that? What do you mean when you say that they benefit from the rights? What do you actually mean when you say that?
I think it means like education.
Right, they
When I
become
say
more
rights,
educated.
I'm talking about, for example, education is one of them. Education is you can become educated, and education is almost free. You can save up, and you can get educated. There's all types of schemes that will allow you, government schemes that will allow you to improve um, uh, your livelihood, or for you to somehow, you
Standard
know, um,
standard of living.
yeah, your standard of living, or get
Right.
a better job, and so on and so forth. For example, and
Yeah.
if let's say a woman gets pregnant, she's going to enjoy certain rights that she wouldn't enjoy in the country where they come from.
Like a
This is just,
healthcare system.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
but you
This
have
is
to
just,
be.
yeah,
But these are rights that they paid for themselves by working.
no,
It's not like
no,
they're
no, no,
getting that
that's
for free. They paid for it.
yeah, they pay for it, but there's also government schemes that allows people to where they get bonuses, they get benefits, they get all types of stuff. Bro, there's all types of stuff that the
Yeah, but
government
they paid for that,
offers.
Nelson. They paid for it. They're not getting it. It's no different than me and you getting it. You're not getting a handout. These are. Remember, we've highlighted the fact that they pay more into the system than most of us. So any
I
benefits that
think,
they get that you're highlighting, these are things that they paid for.
I
It's not like
think,
it's a handout.
no, 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 no. I think this country offers them the opportunities to be able to achieve and become good. That's the reason why they're moving from their countries anyway, away from their countries, because they don't have the opportunities that they currently have, that they would have in this country, that would allow them to become better. So the thing is, I don't believe it. The reason why I don't believe it's cheap labor, even though there's a component to it, is because first of all we have a law that says there's a minimum wage. that you have to be paid, and companies can be sued for that. And I know, there's a lot of stuff that goes, there's a lot of stuff that happens that it's not necessarily, being reported and so on. And I understand that side of things as well. But for the most part, this country does have a minimum wage, and you have to, by law, you have to pay them that amount of money, and you can get out of poverty quickly in this country, because of the opportunities that it offers and so on and so forth. So this idea that they're coming here just to work for, just to live off minimum wage for the rest of their life, I mean, I don't believe that, for
No,
one
and
bit.
I didn't say that. I
No, no, no,
didn't say.
yeah,
Yeah.
but most of these illegal immigrants that come in here, or most of these immigrants that come in here, give them about 5 years. They got their own yard, they got their own place, they got their own
Mm.
things situated. You know,
Which they work for. Which they work
they
for.
yeah, yeah, well, they achieve more in this country than
Yeah.
they would ever achieve in their country in Angola. I know people in Angola, hardworking people, family members, who,
Mm.
if you give them even a percentage of the opportunities that you get in this country, they will die for that. Literally, they will die for that, to have that chance to achieve that. But the thing is, they can't do that in their country.
So
They can't
what
do
is
that, and this is what I'm
what?
trying to say.
So what is the
Sorry,
migrant?
bro.
Yeah.
Rising Knowledge says, how are they here for work when robots already got that? There's no need for a human, so that don't add up. Rising Knowledge, I hear what you're saying, but just it is becoming that way. It is becoming that way. Robots are replacing a lot of people. I'm sorry, because they're doing the job of a lot of people. But they still need people. They still need some kind of labor. They still need some
Mm.
kind of labor. Robots haven't completely taken over yet. That's my opinion on that. Yeah, go ahead.
You're right as well.
Oh,
Hassan.
okay. So if you look at the levels of any person who migrates to this country and work, from the Uber driver, right, or the person doing deliveries, all the way up to the franchise owner who would be a millionaire, right? They're all The important thing to remember is they're all doing the same thing. They're all paying taxes. So whether they come in and stay at a low level, or whether they progress, as we might say, Octavio, which is fair. Having free healthcare and free education does provide a lot of privileges that allows you to progress. Free at the point of use. Free at the point of use. So you don't pay for school when you go there. You pay it through your
Yeah,
taxes and
yeah,
labor.
yeah,
So
in Angola, you have to pay for school. There's
that's it.
that
Yeah,
as well.
a lot of other countries. Yeah, a lot of countries. So,
Yeah.
so it's free at the point of use. That is quite a level forward, right, in terms of the opportunities you might get. But the point to focus on, they're paying taxes from the entry level position all the way up to the higher level positions.
Yeah,
The
yeah, absolutely.
the immigrant community, I guess if you want to call it, or the people of non-white descent, or whatever the expression is, in the UK, pay about 31 billion pounds a year in taxes. Now, the reason I agree with JM that despite all these privileges, despite all these opportunities, that there is a global cabal cartel involved in pushing this forward, is because the amount that they pay in taxes is the almost exact same amount that large corporations and wealthy private individuals don't pay in taxes through offshore accounts, through tax havens and tax loops, right? 35 billion a year that the UK is owed in taxes because of tax havens and tax avoidance, not tax evasion, because there's a difference. And 31 billion pounds paid a year through the economic, also the migrant community. It could be by chance that these wealthier people have influence over politicians, have influence over decisions that are made to destabilize nations, to destabilize certain parts of the world, to further diminish the government's influence on their pockets, to further diminish the influence of local governments on them, and allow the country to be slightly more in their favor in terms of how things are run. Does that make sense to you? No,
Mm.
all right.
No, no,
Can I just make a quick point?
I need to see the statistics that you cited.
Let me just make, can I
That's
make a quick
I
point?
need to
So
see that.
Hassan mentioned Uber. And that's a great example of what I'm talking about because it's only recently, up to recently, that they have introduced a minimum wage. That's why they were there to be taken to court for it. Now, this is, I think, a couple of years ago, they managed to introduce a minimum wage because up to that point, again, it's an example of a multinational corporation using migrant, because let's be honest, most Uber drivers are from the migrant community, um, to enrich themselves using work practices that the indigenous people would not adhere to. Most indigenous people in this country would not work in an environment where there's no minimum wage. Yet you had thousands of migrants here working it for Uber, happy to work. Um, ironically, I remember that case very well. And ironically, it was actually the English-born Uber drivers that took Uber to court. It wasn't the migrant drivers. It was the English-born Uber drivers that took the Uber to court and won that case, which kind of literally highlights my point. But one thing I think we have established through this conversation is that so you had my theory about economic migrants and how it's a labor issue. Nelson had his theory in terms of the benefit, some of the benefits afforded, which is why people come here and for, better standard of life, better living conditions. These are things that obviously I agree with as well. And the son had a kind of a mixture of both reasons. None of us have talked about replacing white people as the reason. Have you noticed that? None of us have come up with a silly idea
Replacement.
that it's about replacing white people, which I think just kind of highlights that when you have intelligent people looking at a situation without having been blinded by racial bias and bigotry, usually the truth comes out. Some level of truth will come out, some rational discussion happens, and some rational conclusions come out. None of us have spoken about the reason why we're seeing it is because they want to wipe out white people. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Absolutely. I don't think it's necessarily. Look, my reasons, for example, for believing the replacement theory. And this again, I have to add this, caveat to it. It's I don't subscribe to what they're trying to say, which is to replace white people. I just think they implemented certain ideologies that have led to the birth rate declining, because this is a big reason why he gives this reason, the birth rate, as one of the big reasons why this replacement theory even exists. He says that you're allowing people to come in that basically, having six babies, whereas your average English person is barely having one. And of course, again, like I said, if you do the maths, eventually one will take over the other. So I can see why they looking at it like that. But this has I don't agree that this is to replace white people, because white people can always choose to have more babies if they want to. But we can't deny that they have implemented the powers that be have implemented certain ideologies that lead to the decline in birth rate. And for example, it's not just white people, even black people that have been part of the Western culture for a very long time and have assimilated into Western culture. They themselves are not producing babies either. So so it would be the immigrant that hasn't been influenced so much by the Western culture, from by feminism, for example, that would be having six babies, but it takes them time before they assimilate into the culture and eventually stop having as many babies. But yeah, birth rate is a big one that he basically mentioned that we haven't talked about. We definitely touched on the immigration side of things. But yeah, this is the reason why I agree with it, but I don't agree in the sense of that they are trying to replace, that the intention is to replace white people. I don't think that's the
So
intention. I think the intent. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, so in terms of the abortion, you're talking about abortion.
No, 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 no,
And you
no,
mentioned that.
not just abortion, not just abortion. It's much more deeper than abortion.
Okay, so all
It's
the I know. So all the philosophies that we're talking about that have reduced the birth rate. So we never got to go
mm,
into all of them. I think we're all
mm.
clear about what we're talking about. Abortion is just one aspect
What
of
is
it.
just one of them? Yeah,
Um,
it's just one
it's
aspect
just
of it.
one. Now let's be honest. These are implemented by their own people. These are not
Facts.
infiltrated by so-called Jewish cabals in some secret room somewhere. People from their own dominant society, whether they be white English, white British, white Belgium, white French, these ideologies, these laws and practices are being instituted by them. Okay,
But
by
hold on a
them.
second. Who's saying this is the Jews doing this? Where, aside from the whites do, who say is the guy? Hold on, the guy that came up with the Great Replacement theory. Is he saying this is the Jews doing it, or is he saying that it's just a birthright? What's being said here?
Well,
Who's saying what?
I will be. I haven't gone into his philosophy at depth, but I know the idea of the Great Replacement theory does have some roots in the idea that we put forward with the protocols of the learned elders of Zion, because it's a destabilization technique they use. They see it as it's a way to destabilize Europe by flooding it with migrants. But as you've highlighted, there's some actual indigenous philosophies and practices and laws instituted, implemented by not foreign powers, but domestic powers um, that are also that contribute to the low birth rate. As you've highlighted, let's go with abortion. Abortion is something that's domestically implemented. That every country has their own abortion rights. These are not something that have been forced upon them by some Jewish cabal from Israel or wherever else. These are what the indigenous politicians of this land have for years allowed to continue. You can't point the finger at some mysterious group where you literally have English politicians who are pushing for abortion rights. And the other, ideologies that we won't speak about too much of, these are coming from domestic politicians. Can't point the finger at some conspiracy theory.
Yeah, yeah. Hassan, what's your thoughts on that?
In terms of the Great Replacement theory from a white European perspective, I think it's yeah, as it's clear to me it's self-inflicted. If you have a belief system that doesn't encourage family values or moral values or legacy and heritage through family creation or whatever, it's up to you. I mean, you're the one that decides that you you don't prioritize reproducing or whatever the issue is. That's nobody else's fault. It's not your neighbor's fault. It's not foreign. It's not even the corporation's fault. That's a genuinely personal choice. So if the great replacement is to blame anyone, it's to blame the individuals, that not the Jews, not the Muslims, not the Africans, not the Middle Eastern people, not the no one, just yourself. It's a choice that you make and you embrace.
Now,
Mainly, yeah.
now the point, now the question I would ask is, everything you're saying is absolutely right. They are the ones they have to blame themselves. But the point is, remember what the theory is. The theory of this guy that came up with the Great Replacement thing. He said the elites are doing this. Okay,
Mm-hmm,
he's pointing the blame to the elites. He's not pointing the blame to Abdul. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't care about that. He's saying the elites are the ones who have implemented these things,
mm-hmm,
and that we can't deny. You know, uh, feminism didn't win a war
mm-hmm,
and establish themselves. Okay,
mm-hmm,
they were helped by the powers that be in order for it to become what it became. And we all know women entering the workforce, what that led to in terms of making things more expensive, more difficult to raise a family, also to afford for a family, and so on. Now, the point is, the elites did come up with this. They did implement that. Now, the question is why the hell, knowing that this is going to be the consequence, okay? Because these people are not stupid. They're not dumb. They know they know the consequences ahead of time. Okay, they know exactly what they were doing when they formulated the feminism ideology, or the impact that it would have on the population. So my question is why would the elites, and we are not talking about some Jewish cabal or whatever. I'm talking about some, the white people in power. Um, why would they come up with such a theory that would destroy their own people? Eventually. Hassan, you still there?
I can make a quick point.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that this Renal Canuck, this Renal, the guy that came with the was Renal
Uh, Camus. Is
Camel.
it?
So he
Yeah.
also was an anti-Semitic, by the way, a known
Camus. Oh, is
anti-Semitic.
it?
So that's why. So you can look this up. Like, he was a known anti-Semitic. That's why when Nelson was
Oh.
talking, I thought, yeah. So he definitely he definitely was look. These so-called elites he's talking about are Jews. That's what he was referring to because he was a known
Hold on,
anti-Semitic.
Jim. How come he wasn't having babies? How come he wasn't helping the situation?
And that's
I
why
don't
that's
get it.
ironic too because he's there talking about lack of birth rate. But so anyway, that's slightly ironic. But I tell you what also is ironic. I tell you something else that's ironic too. If you look at some of the people pushing this idea, let's look at the Myrons and the Sneakos and the Adam and
Mm.
you know what's so funny to me? They're putting the finger at this so-called Jewish conspiracy that's undermining Europe. That is resulting in a low birth rate, etc. Meanwhile, among their ranks, they have a man called Rollo Tomassi, who literally tells young white men, because that's his audience, don't have kids, don't make families. Get what's that procedure called?
Vasectomy.
Right. So this
Vasectomy.
is
Yeah,
the irony.
vasectomy.
This is the irony. So here they're putting at this Jewish conspiracy to reduce the birth rate of and yet within their own ranks they have a
Oh,
spiritual leader telling white men, yeah, don't get families, don't have babies, don't seek marriage. You can't make this. You can't make this up.
you
You really
can't make
cannot
this
make this
shit
up.
up. You can't make this shit up. This is yeah, Hassan, go ahead. I've got so much to say about that. Go ahead, Hassan, go ahead.
Well, this is one of the reasons the far right don't like Myron. Besides being a brown person, he promotes he promotes these ideas that goes against what they're trying to do. They're trying to have family creation and reproduce and what have you. But he promotes the idea of don't go down that path, and that's one of the things they genuinely hate him for. But yeah, but that's all. I'll let you go on.
No, no, no. I was just gonna point to a recent situation with Fresh, when the girl apparently maybe wasn't pregnant. But anyway, she went around telling everyone that she was pregnant, and they mocked it. They told her to get an abortion. These are the type of things that these guys stand for. And JM bringing this up actually makes perfect sense. Now, why is Myron trying to align with people? This is the part that I don't get about him. Okay, what values does he really stand for? If he stands for family creation, why is he okay with abortion? Why is he okay with bits of an ideology that are detrimental to family creation? Who hangs around with a man that tells men to get a vasectomy? He's good friends with him. The guy promotes every type of degeneracy, and he's okay with it. And Myron also promotes the type of living a hedonistic lifestyle, which leads to no family creation. Everything that Myron stands for, Myron might as well be on the left. They're always insulting leftists, but I mean, if you look at everything that he believes in, he stands for, sleeping with 50 women, all of that, abortion, you name it. He might as well be on the left. There's no difference between him and leftist values, or the values that have led the West to where it is right now. And yeah, it just doesn't make any sense. It really just doesn't make any sense at all.
So it
You
shows that
know?
this is just basic. I mean, to call it racism actually gives it actually more credence. It's actually just at this point, it's fashionable now to just say, "Oh, we're being replaced by the Jews are behind our." It's almost fashionable. It's just something to say to echo around internet circles because they all got this kind of echo chamber type of situation where one person says
Mm,
something, they all jump on it. That's what this is now. Because again, if they really were concerned about the European birth rate, the plight of European family populations being replaced by brown people, who would, on their right mind, would push a ideology, the red pill, in this instance, that literally the result we've highlighted in detail what the ultimate result would be, a complete drop in the birth rate because men are being encouraged to have vasectomies, to not engage in marriage at early age. Obviously, the quicker you get married, the more likely you can have children, and the more children you can have, which is actually demonstrated in other places in the world, by the way. So we can see the
facts.
blueprint straight away. But they're being told, wait till you're 40 to settle down. Wait till you're in your 40s, guys, to settle down. Don't have any children until then. This is the advice being pushed to European men in Western countries by these idiots. Get a vasectomy. Don't have what is it? No children. Do not
Yeah.
engage in marriage. Wait until
Yeah.
you're late 30s to early 40s to do this. How does that have any kind of bearing on boosting the European population?
None whatsoever. And another thing as well. This Camus guy, he says that I know you mentioned all by brown people, but his main objection is Islam. He says it's to do with it's mainly Muslims, and he cited Muslims because of the birth rate, which I don't blame Muslims for. I think it's a good thing to have for people to be procreating. So his issue is, even though he says he talks about immigration, he's more specific with Muslims. It's just like, okay, it's Muslims that I'm really worried about because they have high birth rates. So yeah, Hassan, how do you feel about that?
It's just the guy's got a movie playing in his head, and you have to have the villain be somebody else than yourself, because these far right movements and these ultra ethno nationalist movements just end up consuming themselves and turning against themselves. You could see it with Myron and the other guys that don't like him. Any other far right organization usually just turns on itself. So the Muslims have to be a problem or the Jews have to be a problem. It can't be internal. It can't be maybe what I'm doing or what I'm pursuing is the issue. It can't be I need to alter my behavior for me to see my life to change, right? Somebody else has to change their behavior. Or it's the elites. It's always somebody else. Because if the elite promotes certain, how can I say, certain practices, doesn't necessarily mean you have to abide by them, except it's just open to you. You say the Muslims moving into the West, don't, whether they've been here for one generation or a few generations, they don't necessarily buy into, by and large, not all, by and large, don't buy into um, the propaganda that's available. And what is it that they're doing that you're not? They're just saying no. They're just saying no. That's it.
No, no, it's not as simple as that, Hassan. It's because they have a religion that they believe in. They have an authority that they believe is much more is much more bigger than the government, bigger than all of that. Just like a Christian, Christian would believe that his
Oh, I see what you're
authority
saying.
is much.
Okay.
So they have an objective standard by which they
Yes.
live their lives by which
Yes.
they that dictates what they do and what they don't do. That's the reason. It's not just saying no. But the thing is, just to mention as well, the far right guys. I wonder why they took to this the great replacement theory, Why do they take this on board? Okay, if they are not willing to have babies, if they are not willing to increase the birth rate, if they are not willing to do any of that, because it's them that are not creating kids. It's not anyone else. I actually remember watching one of the it was on X. Myron was on it. It wasn't this time around. It was the other time around when he got insulted as usual. Every time he goes into those spaces, he gets taught a lesson. And these guys were just talking amongst each other. I was listening to them. They were just talking amongst each other. And one of them kept talking about the birth rate, and the other one got very angry with the one that kept talking about birth rate because he was like, "So where's your kids?" Because I don't have any right now. I'm not married. I might go. What's your reason for that? Or I might go to jail. He goes, yeah, we just don't believe you because you're just chatting shit because you're not out here. And I think that's the conundrum that they're in. And I think the reason why they are in this situation is because they believe in ideologies that do not support family creation, do not support the idea of family creation like Christianity would, like Islam would, like they don't come from those ideas. They're basically atheists, feminists, and liberals
Pagans.
at heart, and pagans. Yeah, that's basically who they are. And they get mad at themselves because I think they've realized now that the problem is they're not creating any babies. I think the statistics have come out and they can see the mistakes of the past, and now they're pissed off at themselves because they don't have anything. Instead of them actually doing something about it, they're actually not doing anything about it because the things that they believe in that do not support that. So they are in this, in the circle. They keep going around in a cycle and they never get anywhere. They don't understand why is it that they are not having babies. And it's because they don't have an ideology that supports that idea of having babies.
Can I just say one thing? Uh,
Mm.
this reminds me of a discussion I was hearing in Speaker's Corner once. So it's a famous YouTube actually. If you go on YouTube and you type, actually I'll show you. I'll let JM talk and I'll show you the guy that I'm talking about. Carry on, guys. Let me.
Yeah, yeah, go ahead. Because we don't have that long to go anyway, guys. We
Yeah,
got
yeah,
another 15 minutes, so we're gonna call it a day. I think
yeah,
we went through this topic still. Yeah, go ahead, Jeb. Go.
yeah, yeah. I just think, yeah. At the end of the day, um, it's very typical for unfortunately, for this type of what I've noticed with these white nationalists, they have no. And it's ironic again because the same people that always talk about how women don't take accountability for their behavior, they don't take they won't take accountability for their behavior as a collective either.
Not even one bit. Yeah.
They won't take accountability. It's because of the ideologies that you push while your societies are crumbling. Don't blame this secret cabal of Jews somewhere in space or wherever they think they are. Don't blame them. You have brought about your own downfall. And to be honest, to be fair to Andrew Tate, actually, even though I disagree with a lot of what he says, he's actually highlighted this. He's highlighted the fact that it's within your own ranks. You need to look for your issue, for your solutions, and for your problems. Look at within your own. Look at what you're pushing. Look at your ideologies. Look how you live, how you're raising
Facts.
your children. Go there.
Facts.
If you want to understand what your issues are, go internal. Don't look outside for the boogeyman. Take accountability, Europeans, for why your society is crumbling.
Yes.
If
Yes.
that's what you believe is happening, I don't subscribe to that. But if you believe your society is crumbling and being destroyed, take accountability for it.
Oh,
Uh,
well said. Well said. Yeah, go ahead, bro. Do you want to play this video?
no, if you just skip like that guy, you don't need to play it. But this is the guy I was talking about. The guy with the bald guy with the glasses. Can you see him?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Standing. Children cannot consent to puberty blockers.
Yeah, yeah.
So he argues against trans kids, so meaning that he says kids shouldn't transition, and obviously they can't consent to puberty blockers and things like this. I've met him in Speaker's Corner, and he was having a debate with a gay guy, and he was telling the gay guy that trans kids it's a social contagion. This shouldn't be promoted. They're children. They can't transition. And the gay guy said to him, well, this is the same argument that people had against the LGBT community. And the argument set against the LGBT community is now being used against the trans community. He said, well, no, this is the bold guy. He said, well, no, it's scientifically proven that you can be gay. So the arguments against the LGBT community can't be used against the arguments. So there's scientific proof that you can be gay and that being gay is normal, but making kids transition is not normal. And that pretty much sums up the whole white replacement theory. They're both white, by the way. These two are the gay guy and this guy here. They both are making up their morals as they go along and using science to be the edge of their morality. He says it's scientifically proven that you can be gay, and the argument was arguing that you can scientifically prove that kids can be transgender. They're both idiots, and they're both mutilating their own gene pool to a certain degree, because the being gay is harmful. It is a social contagion. It's harmful to every society. It doesn't help people reproduce. It's the amount of diseases associated with a LGBTQ lifestyle aren't documented enough or aren't presented enough. It then leads on to once you cross that moral boundary, goes on to other moral boundaries, because the trans identity wasn't much of an identity in the early 2000s and the 90s. But when gay marriage was introduced, so civil partnerships, and then gay marriage was introduced, well, then you let anything is possible. Of course, kids can be trans, because if you can be gay and be married, if a man can marry another man, well, then why can't kids be trans and so on? Well, where do you draw the line? You don't draw a line. You draw the line here, and then somebody behind you draws another line, and then further back and another line, and then all of a sudden you're nowhere. You're far from where you started, and that is the crux of the issue. There is no moral foundation. If there was a religion of some sort, like Islam or Christianity or whatever, then we could all go from the same page and say, if we change this, then it all comes apart. So let us not change anything. Let us just abide by an objective standard, not a subjective standard, not my truth versus your truth, and use subjective scientific data funded by certain particular groups that want a particular end that then somehow doesn't benefit you but benefits them more than it does you. But then this study is refuted and that study is refuted, but by the time the evidence is made clear that this is just people manipulating data, by then it's too late, because the people who fund the studies also own the media, who then go on and on and on and on and on. So it all becomes chaotic, and it spirals out of control, because there is no objective moral standard, I guess one could argue, because you're just making up as you go along. What's moral to you is what's not moral to me, and what's moral to me maybe not moral to you. And then the third person will have their own opinions, and the fifth person will have their own opinions. And if it's do as thy wilt be all of the law, then sooner or later things are really going to change and become very unrecognizable. And you then at that point can't say, oh, it's the Jews because they're still Jewish. Oh, it's the Muslims because they're still Muslims. But they choose their behavior. They don't choose your behavior. You're the one who chooses your behavior. You're the one on the street arguing that trans kids shouldn't be acceptable, but homosexuality should be. You're choosing your own destruction. You can argue and promote whatever ideas that you want, but you'll just fade into the distance. Yeah.
Facts, couldn't have said it any better. Guys, let's get those last thoughts in. I want every far right person to come and watch this. This might help them come out of their little bubble that they're in. Yeah, bro. Last thoughts, Jay. James still there?
Yeah, sorry guys, a mute thing. Yeah, last thoughts. Well, I think through the course of this discussion, we've highlighted some legitimate reasons as to why there's been an influx of migrants, and each one of those reasons we put forward, we've been able to kind of show some type of specific reasoning behind it. None of what we say could be deemed as a conspiracy theory. We've come up with some very legitimate, credible evidence that show why there's been an influx of migrants into some of these European countries. That's the first thing. Secondly, I think a very important point that we kind of raised at the end is I think it's important to understand that if you as a European, which is what these, or a Westerner or white Western male, okay, these are the people that are, and they're wannabes. So the Myrons of these worlds, you know, the wannabe white supremacists, white nationalists. Um, their theory is literally just an exercise in not taking accountability, as far as I see it. Because as we've highlighted, if you're concerned with, for example, the birth rate within your European westernized countries, the philosophies that have contributed to that birth rate are things that you can control. The indigenous male can control these things. They can control some of the philosophies that are being put out there. They can control abortion rights. They can control ideologies like the red pill that are infiltrating their societies, that are telling young men within these societies to stop family creation, to have vasectomies. So what it tells me is that this is just simply an exercise in bigotry. That's all it is. It's just not taking accountability for your own society's collapse and looking for a scapegoat, which is something that these people are very good at doing. In fact, they have a history of always looking for the scapegoat, never taking accountability for their own demise. It has to be the other. Just another example of that. And that's it. That's it for me.
I would say, who's to blame for the great replacement? I would say the elites. I would say the feminists, the atheists, the people who have the Marxists, the people who have bought into liberal ideologies. That's who's to blame for the great replacement, and no one else. Okay, these are who the far right people need to take an issue with. You need to kind of you need to turn back away from the liberal ideologies if you want to get your country back from the immigrants. You have to turn your back to liberal ideologies, to the idea that morality is subjective. That depending on how morality is based on how you feel rather than an objective standard like Christianity. So yes, you've turned your back to Christianity, objective morality, and you embrace atheism, you've embraced feminism, you've embraced all these ideologies, and you've and as and when I say you've embraced these ideologies, what I'm really talking about is you've embraced the what the elites have sold to you. Okay, so it is the elite's fault, but it's also your fault because you are the ones consuming it. You are the ones participating in it. And as long as that's the case, the birth rate will continue to decline, and and the corporations will continue to demand. I wouldn't necessarily say cheap labor or the powers that be will for whatever reason, there are many reasons we explored many reasons as to why the immigration is increasing in the West, and if and another thing as well, if the powers that be um, got you guys uh, to follow an ideology that leads you to self-destruct, like feminism, okay? Um, uh, to the point where you're not even reproducing anymore. If they if they got you to do that, God knows why God knows the reasons why they allow they would allow immigration, they would allow all of these things to happen. So um, if you guys want your country back, far right people, stop blaming people, start looking at yourselves, start taking accountability, like JM said, and convert, go back to Christianity, objective morality. Go back to that because at least that promotes family creation. That's the only thing that can really fight against liberalism and all these hedonistic ideologies that you guys follow. Okay, if you don't do that, then yeah, just embrace your self-destruction because that's what it will continue to be. And you guys can talk online as much as you want, can be as racist as much as you want, but as long as you keep embracing these ideologies and following these atheist, stupid, nonsensical ideologies, guess what will happen? You continue to lead yourself to self-destruction. No amount of screaming will help. But yeah, that's my final thoughts. Yeah, go ahead, Hassan.
Yeah, put simply, is it a great replacement to a certain degree of the European pagan? Yes. Do I care? No. Because it's your choice. You're the one that makes these decisions. You're the one that believes what you believe, and you're the one that does what you want to do. So this is the end. If this is the end product, fair enough. Make a change or don't. I don't care either way.
Guys, thanks for that, Hassan. There's another amazing show for you guys to learn from. Please share this with all the far rights out there, and hopefully they'll this will help them and understand certain things. But yeah, guys, thanks to everyone. Shouts to JM, shouts to Hassan, shouts to everyone watching Rising Knowledge. Who else did we have? Nasir, Dumfries, Stegman. Shouts to all of you guys. And we'll see you next time. Solution Podcast, guys. Peace.
Peace.
Yeah, people.